Welcome to the Dataliction Podcast. Today's guest is Ryan Dozer. Ryan is a strategist, creator, and founder who's become a trusted voice in the middle of all the noise around AI and authenticity. His work around what he calls the trust recession has helped a lot of leaders see what's really happening below the surface and how to respond with clarity instead of panic. Before we get started, if you have not signed up for our newsletter, please go to our website and on our LinkedIn so that you can keep learning with us every single week. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast and consider leaving a 5-star rating, which helps more people to discover these resources that we keep creating for you. And now, my conversation with Ryan Dozer. Ryan, welcome to the show. I'm so grateful to have you here. You've been traveling around the world lately, and so I feel real privileged to have you. Again, welcome, Ryan. Thanks for being here.
John, thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, we were just chatting before the show. I was in Thailand in about a 24-hour trip back. So a few days back, though, I'm ready to go and ready to chat about this trust recession that's prevalent everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. So trust recession, this might be the first time some people are hearing that term. Indeed, when we were chatting, I think you were the first one I ever heard coin that phrase, but it immediately clicked with the experiences I'm currently having. So for our listeners who probably have felt this, Ryan, give them the technical definition that you have created, in my opinion, of what is this trust recession that we're struggling through right now in technology, communication, everything.
Yeah, so first of all, I can't take full credit. Someone in my AI community actually said it to me, and I was like, wow, that's probably the most genius phrase I've ever heard, and I should probably trademark it. So I wanted to say that first and foremost. But let's talk about trust overall before we dive into trust when it comes to AI, because I would argue that over time, ever since the launch of the internet, you could maybe argue even before that, trust has been on a constant decline. You have this rise of fake news and all this social media stuff everywhere where trust is dwindling there. And now when we have AI in the mix, this is what I call the AI inflection point. It's that moment in time where the average person in society asks themselves whenever they read something, listen to something, or hear something, is this real or is this AI? And that is what I define as the trust recession. It's when people no longer take information at face value and they start doubting literally everything that they see online. And think about all the negative implications that this has. I honestly think this is one of the most scary realities that not a lot of people are talking about when it comes to AI. What do we hear all the time, John? It's like Terminator, Doomsday, all these other hypothetical things about how AI is going to take over the world. But when the average person loses trust and can't determine AI versus reality, think about the negative consequences that has on society, both on the economy, because when you don't trust something, you're probably not going to buy something. So this is just a much bigger deal than what people are making it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you'll end up trusting something that's false. You'll end up not trusting something that is true. I mean, it cuts both ways, and it's certainly an inflection point, just like you said, for the level of trust. I do think it's interesting the way that being in person has really become a special thing, because someone just knows, well, at least I'm dealing with a real human. At least it's a real conversation. What you might be saying is a lie, but at least you're real. And so I think that that's something that I appreciate. What are some of the signals that you do feel like are more trusted, though, still? Obviously, I mentioned in person, but digitally, it is very difficult. So what are the more trusted versus least trusted things that we're seeing online, in work, all over right now?
Yeah, you mentioned in person. I still think that's going to continue to be a huge thing, not only with like meetups, conferences, events. I think that's going to be huge going forward, but also like the digital realm. I think what we're doing right now from a podcast format, I think that's a really big trust signal to help people know that, hey, this isn't AI, or, some people might think this is my clone because it's so good at this point, but it's not. This is actually me showing up, giving my raw, authentic thoughts on a podcast. Community meetups, I think I said that one before, but also just showing proof, like, if you have a business, like video testimonials or anything like case studies, right? Those are just some examples of trust signals. But honestly, just showing up on an authentic podcast, not having things scripted, not using clones, and also live streaming. I don't think I mentioned live streaming yet either. Live streaming is very hard to fabricate. I'm sure people have tried this using AI clones and whatnot, but from a digital realm, kind of wrapping up here, it's this one-to-one authentic podcast format, and then also live streaming, I would say. It's very hard to fabricate those.
Yeah, I've been interested in a lot of the streamers online are very popular, huge followings. They're monetizing like crazy off of it. So I do think there's a spot in the market for these. I think is it Twitch? Is that one of the big stream? I don't know the streaming
Yeah,
platforms.
I think
I'm a
Twitch
little
is
old
big in
for
the
this.
gaming industry, but YouTube Live I know is probably getting bigger. I see StreamYard, that's a popular streaming platform that
Okay.
goes across all platforms. Like I see streaming being just a huge thing going forward, just to build more trust with people, because trust is the ultimate currency here in 2025 and beyond. I think that's only going to become more valuable.
So there's this interesting thing I've been testing of so I love writing. I've always been the guy very OCD with my emails. Very thorough with my emails, with my formatting. I have a little bit of kind of marketing background. And so 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I was the guy that had the beautiful emails, okay, with the indentations and even emojis and all this. Okay, Ryan, I can't do that anymore because now everyone just thinks, even if I do it by hand, that AI did it. So I found for me, one of the most trustworthy things is to almost underdo it and misspelled words and run on sentences. And it's not the best grammatic thing, but just almost stream of consciousness underbaked. Are you starting to see this willingness to have someone, have errors and problems and ums and all this because they're like, oh, well, AI would have removed that. It feels more human. And that's why it is scary though. Going live, right now you and I are in this digital studio. I understand I have the power right now that if I say something dumb, I can go and edit
Yeah.
it. And so it helps me feel a little more at ease, but live is live and it's forever when it's streaming. We have obviously you mentioned YouTube Live and streaming like that. There's the flip side of any sort of social proof is if you're just paying someone to say something as well. Like the monetization behind everything then also makes me challenge things. Like just so people everyone here knows, if you're listening, we're not sponsored by anybody. We're not getting money from anybody in this. We're just doing this because you believe in this. I believe in this, Ryan. That said, what are some ways you've been able to see people can trust through, an ad or a sponsorship? Because sponsorships are not innately bad,
Right.
but disclosing them on what they are. What are ways to navigate our ability to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, to use that old phrase?
Yeah, I actually look at my YouTube channel as a very good example of this. And I hate to put myself on a pedestal here, but I'm telling you, John, I have given up thousands of dollars. My email gets blown up by 10 to 15 AI companies every single day wanting me to do a promotion or a sponsorship for their SaaS tool. And I'm like, get out of here with all of this garbage. There are literally hundreds or thousands of different AI tools at this point. They all suck. There's only very few that are actually decent. And so my channel is living proof of this. I've turned away thousands of dollars in sponsorships because my thinking here is I would rather not sacrifice my long-term credibility and long-term trust, as we talked about earlier. I think that is only going to become more valuable than selling out and taking these short-term cash grabs. And I just made a YouTube video on this exact topic recently. The unfortunate reality is that most people on YouTube in the content creation world, when it comes to AI, they are complete sellouts. They're selling out all these products. They're selling out all these brand new updates and tools as all caps insane updates when they're not really insane. And so I think it's important for the average person to really take a step back. And when they're watching someone or listening to someone talk about AI, is this person trying to sell me something? Is this actually insane? Does this actually matter to my day-to-day workflow? So I think that's just such a huge issue in the content creation world right now. And people's BS meters are getting better by the day as AI becomes more infiltrated with everything. So yeah, like you were just saying there, I really do think that my YouTube channel is living proof of this. I could have blown this thing up and made way more money than where I'm currently at right now, but I've decided to play a long-term game of building trust with my audience. And I think that's going to play out great for me in the long run.
Yeah, long term is all about integrity and making sure that you remain when everything else pops up and fizzles away. That's just the facts right now. Now, let's talk about you mentioned the BS meter, and what are some tools that you would say we can apply when we are approaching some things? So, for example, I really love as kind of a hobby the health and wellness space. I've got several key doctors and influencers that I've been following that have helped really kind of reframe and train the way that I hear other people's content, where I'm like, oh, wait, that's not true. I know that's not true because I have this and I can cross reference these things. Um, that's just one of the complicated areas. Obviously, in AI, and I want to kind of drill down on that. You've mentioned there's thousands of tools, most of them are trash. But to say that all of them are trash is perhaps not the wisest thing, because then you might be missing out on something. So, what's the way to test, vet, experiment, keep open hands, but also a sharp mind as we are trying to continue to learn and not miss something along the way?
Yeah, well, first of all, perception is reality too, right? Obviously, there's a ton of nuances, and everyone's experiences are going to be different than what we're doing on a day to day basis. But when it comes to the AI realm, I always tell people you should start by experimenting with the big three before we go down this endless rabbit hole of tools. It's ChatGPT, it's Claude, and it's Google Gemini. Sure, you could throw Grok in there if you're, an active user on X or whatnot, but those are the big three. Once you start to play around with the big three AI tools, then, in my opinion, once you start to master the fundamentals and whatnot, then should you go down this endless rabbit hole of AI tools based on whatever your particular niche and use cases are. So for me in content creation, a popular tool that I use is HeyGen to create AI avatars, or 11 Labs to create a professional voice clone, or a tool called Blatato to help me automate my social media, right? These are just some very niche tools based on my use cases. But before we go down anywhere near that rabbit hole, again, master the big three of ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini. And honestly, I would recommend that you pay for a premium version of one of those, because the free versions of all these AI tools are extremely limited. You get bad models and they suck, in my opinion, in the long run. So pay $20 a month, actually invest $20 a month. You're not just paying for it, you're investing in it, and then figure out what your use cases in your particular niche is, and then go from there. That's the best advice that I can give people.
Yeah, and your explanation is brilliant, because the best way to know when something is fake is to actually study the real thing. And a lot of the sources on most of these thousands of AI tools are just doing token connections to one of the big three anyway and running this stuff in the back
Flappers, we
end.
call them.
Yeah, yeah. And that's not innately bad, but for us to understand what is happening, what's not happening, that it's not magic. My grandpa, back when he was teaching me to kind of look at the world in a very different way than the way I grew up, then he used to talk about counterfeit money and the way that they would train these bankers to find counterfeit money with like cash and everything, which is funny because I don't even use cash anymore. But that said, they'd have the bankers count out the money, the real money. Just say, "Hey, here's real money. This is good money." And then once they've been doing that for several weeks, they would test them and throw in a counterfeit, and they'd be like, "Wait, this one's different. This one's not right." And so I do love your principle of get in there, experience at that kind of very source level of having a conversation, watching it hallucinate, watch what it can do well, watch what it will never do well. And that's a great experiment right there. Let's talk about this process of learning ourselves first before we then apply AI to it. Because I do think that anytime I see an email that says, "I hope this email finds you well," I know for a fact they didn't even write that email. They didn't even try. They just processed it through. So what are the ways that you've been like breaking down who you are first and then finding tools that fit you and what you do better? Because then I think the AI will reflect your authenticity a little bit better. But yeah, like what's the ways that you would break this out as far as me as a person, as a professional?
Yeah, that's a great point you made there. I think on a very basic level, everyone using AI should create custom versions of AI. And what do I mean by custom versions of AI? It's a custom GPT in ChatGPT. It's a project in ChatGPT or Claude. It's a gem in Google Gemini or a space if you're using Perplexity. And with these customized versions, you can train them with custom instructions. You can upload knowledge like your first party data of writing samples, video transcripts you've been on, or anything else that's relevant to help train this project or GPT sound more like you. One quick tip that I use in my Ryan Dozer project is I actually have an AI words and phrases exclusion list. Things like delve, robust, I hope this finds you well, right? All of these common phrases that we call AI or chat GPT slop and the M dashes that we don't want to ever show up in an output. Now, there's nuances, of course, with this if you're in a particular industry and whatnot, but that's just one quick tip I'd recommend in addition to all that first party data. And then in terms of that, I would say that's step one. Step two, you could create a clone of yourself with HeyGen or 11 Labs, like a digital clone like I have throughout my YouTube shorts or my TikTok clone. You can actually use Notebook LM as well to help clone yourself and use Gemini in that chat bot if you're familiar with Notebook LM and how you can pull in sources and it can scrape that and, use a chat bot to get better answers that way. But that's what I would say is just create a custom version of AI on ChatGPT, Claude, or Google Gemini, because the worst mistake you can do is pull up the free version of ChatGPT and just shotgun that without any instructions, any training data, and thinking that your result is going to be a silver bullet to your problem, because that's not reality.
Yeah, that is excellent advice, and you're teaching me a whole bunch of things, which is part of why I wanted to have you on the podcast already. I know that our listeners are going to absolutely love it. I'm going to have to go back and take a bunch of I'm going to handwrite it. I'm not just going to AI these notes right here, Ryan, because they're too good. That said, Ryan, I want to talk about the ways that we are currently interacting with customers, as buyers, all these things. We see automations out there a lot, which I do ensure that our listeners know the difference between automation and AI. They usually will work together, but they are slightly unique. But that said, I think that one of those things that make us not trust is when all of a sudden I fill out a form online. I send it, a text message, and it immediately comes back with some sort of supposed to be heartfelt answer of I'm so grateful you're here. No, you're not. This is a code. And so what are some of the things you would say absolutely stop doing for businesses if you really want to increase trust? Some automation's okay, some AI is okay, but what are those things you're seeing right now that you would just tell every business owner, please stop doing that? You're losing trust every time.
Yeah, well, taking a step kind of back from that first and foremost, I work with a lot of businesses and they always like to see these shiny AI agents and automations all over the internet. And I always tell them, I'm like, do you even have your systems dialed in before we start getting into automations and agents? Because if you don't have a cleaned up CRM, you don't have proper SOPs, you don't have an actual system to qualify an inbound lead, follow up, etc., what is an agent or an automation going to do for you? So that is step one, is getting your systems dialed in. And to go on the point of automations, in addition to that, not everything needs to be automated. I don't know about you, John, but I don't know someone closing high ticket deals from the beach running their 100 node AI agent automations that they see all over LinkedIn, right? Things like high ticket B2B sales in particular, there always needs to be a human in the loop to close something like that. Any high value task, actually, in my opinion, there needs to be a human in the loop. One for me is my email newsletter that I actually use every week. Yes, I use AI to help draft a template by scraping my YouTube video transcripts that I put on my YouTube channel. But after I get that template, I'm actually adding my own thoughts. I'm adding my own images, my own links, my own perspective on what's actually going on. So anything that's high value, there should always be a human in the loop, in my opinion. But anything that's dreadful or things that are still important, but you dread doing, like data entry might be a good example, basic lead follow-up through emails or SMS text messages, that could be something that you could leave for an automation to figure out. But I just think that there's this whole shiny object syndrome right now of business owners and people in general where they want to just go straight after the automation and the AI agent, but they first need to take a step back and ask themselves, are my systems dialed in before I even go down this rabbit hole? And two, is this task actually highly valuable? Because if it is, there still needs to be a human in the loop in order to actually close deals in the real world. I'm just sorry, that's reality.
Yeah. Ryan, do you think that people are chasing these automations and these AIs because they're just fundamentally excited for progress? Or do you think that maybe it is invoking the worst of our laziness as people? Do you think it's just I'm excited to do more than I ever have? Like, you've experienced a lot of personalities and people and feedback and comments on all your social and all this. Uh, why are we so enamored with this automation? Is it because we can do more and like grow our company, or is it because like, oh yeah, I'm just still chasing the 10-hour work week that we were promised back in the 50s?
Yeah, a lot of it is just BS content creation, people on LinkedIn in particular trying to drive engagement. And I also think it's a bunch of silver bullet syndrome, right? There's a huge education gap in the AI automation space. And so someone who doesn't know how to build an automation or what does this automation actually accomplish, they're going to get silver bullet syndrome and think, "Oh my God, this guy on TikTok or YouTube told me I can automate my entire business from my beach and let 10 AI agents run everything. Let me just drop what I'm doing and try to figure this out," only to end up finding out that it's expensive, things break, and it doesn't actually work like that person said. But too bad, John, you bought their course, you subscribed to their community, and then it's on to the next one, right? And so I think it's a huge, huge education gap, and it's also paired that with silver bullet syndrome.
Yeah, people still line up for X Factor, for American Idol, for America's Got Talent. They all still line up because they think they're the person that will get on there. Little do they know there's producers that are typecasting and all these, and it's brilliant. I'm actually watch all these shows and I enjoy it. That said, I get it. It's just entertainment. And I think that if people are somehow thinking that there's a person on an advertisement that's genuinely going to give you the keys to $1 million a year randomly on an ad spend, no, they're not going to do that. They're just trying to fool you and indeed even scare you. There was a very large webinar event here recently, and I don't want to throw out
I know what
anybody's
you're talking about. I think.
yes. And I'm telling you what, I was talking with my team in as we were driving in person to go visit one of our clients in person, and I was livid at the content on here. And I said this: when people are trying to make you afraid, they are trying to control you and usually make money off of you. And so I think that that's inverted as well on this silver bullet syndrome. I think you've said multiple times, there is not a silver bullet. The fact is, as professionals, if I am a CPA, I am more powerful using Excel and using other tools. Yes. But if I am not a CPA and I just get Excel, I don't now know how to do taxes and file everything. And so back to your whole point of simple systems that are human focused and really just follow the dollar value that just makes sense, and use these tools to help you at what you are already doing, but they're not going to replace you and help you in a way that you haven't been able to help yourself yet. Hey, so let's talk about anything else that you would just ask business owners to stop doing right now. And the reason is this: I get to meet with business owners all the time, and I know that they are all nervous that they're missing something, that one of their competitors is going to start doing this shiny new thing, and they're thinking about investing tens of thousands of dollars into it. Okay. Whether it's a chat bot or it's, a voice agent or something like that. Anything else that you would say, hey, don't do this with AI, and maybe instead do this.
Yeah, I would say, this kind of alludes to the whole topic of this entire episode is like, don't chase the shiny objects and think that every single update or AI tool that you hear about everywhere, or something's on the news, or you saw something on YouTube or a TikTok video, don't drop what you're doing and lose focus on an actual high value task and then shift over to something that you have no idea what that's going to do. And let's say, John, that it is a big update or whatever. Who knows if that's going to apply to what your actual business is and what drives revenue? So I think what people need to figure out is, I'm not saying that you shouldn't hire an AI consultant. There's a lot of probably good AI consultants out there that you could hire someone in and just give a holistic consultation of your business, look at those recommendations, and then go from there, versus just chasing every shiny new thing that comes up. And this is a problem that I see with business owners everywhere. They don't have an education when it comes to AI, and they think that they're behind and their competitor next door is using all these agents and automations and getting ahead of them. But again, it always comes back to the high value tasks. What are the high value tasks? Can AI come into the mix there? Oftentimes, yes, it can help, but there still needs to be a human in the loop, like I said earlier. But where you should focus your time with AI and automations are those low value tasks that are still very important, that can give you 5, 10, 15, 20 plus hours back in a week, or maybe save you from a few new hires that you wouldn't have to invest that money elsewhere, right? So I think if you're looking at that from a low value task perspective on where can I use AI and automations to help me versus a high value task perspective where a human in the loop needs to be, that is probably some good advice that I can give business owners right now. Focus on those low value tasks and figure out where can I use AI and automations to help with those. Keep a human in the loop on the high value tasks. Do not let AI and automations replace those.
Yeah, our mental load for these nominal tasks that just bog us down, we cannot undervalue not just the time that it can save, but the, again, mental energy of just these repetitious things that will help us. I will tell you, Ryan, there are a lot of times that I need to get some of my thoughts written down, quote unquote written, obviously typed down. And I love to talk. You and I have chatted a bunch. I'm on a podcast. I'm a talker. I enjoy getting my thoughts out by talking. And it is laborious for me to sit there and try to type. And honestly, this is a funny thing about me. I don't type properly, Ryan. I use like weird fingers and everything. Like anyone that's sitting next to me gets a good laugh. But now I can speak out what I'm saying, get a transcript, organize my own real thoughts in a way that now I'm being more creative. I'm being, truly communicating, and I'm taking out the whole like middle mechanistic process of punching this button and copying and pasting and all that. So that's the way that I have enjoyed personally being enhanced by AI. And back to your point, AI cannot heal a broken company. They cannot. They can enhance what is already there. So if what's already there is broken, it's going to be even more broken. And I do think that there is power, but there is great problems with people that just think you can have an easy button. That's never been the case, but there's so much noise, so much, content out there. So let's talk a little bit about this to kind of finish up and wrap up this idea of trust. I love the kind of they ask, you answer mentality of figuring out what are people genuinely interested in, helping them to actually learn about it, having conversations and different pieces of content. I think that helps trust. What are the ways to build trust right now? Obviously, keeping humans in the loop, but what are some of the AI ways that can help us deliver trust maybe in a new way to our constituents, our new, our prospects, our new customers? We want to build trust. We want to be smart. What are some of your favorite ways right now that you'd send people toward their customers to build trust?
Yeah, I think going forward, I think personal brands are really the ultimate leverage here, John, because we connect with people, both me and you, and also I think society in general. People connect more with people. They trust people more that they know versus just random brands on the internet. I would argue even legacy brands, people trust people more than those legacy brands. And so I think if you start to actually prioritize your personal brand going forward, whether not only if you work for a company, maybe you're trying to monetize or, put your personal brand out there in a particular industry, or if you own a business, this is even better, getting your personal brand out there to benefit your business on the back end. I am just so bullish on the personal brand side of things because that's actually why I rebranded my YouTube channel. It was called AI Insider Tips when I first started this, going after like an SEO keyword was kind of my thought process there. But then I had a light bulb moment where I'm like, trust is going to continue to go down. Personal brands are going to continue to go up. And so if people know that I always show up, I'm my authentic self. Yes, I have my clones for short form content, but all my long form content is me hitting record on a camera and just spitting my honest thoughts. I think, strong personal brands and authenticity, that will not lose in the long term. That is just my honest take, is that prioritize your personal brand. And I know it's scary to get up here and talk to a camera and record yourself on video, but I just think that's really one of the only ways going forward that you're ever going to establish trust with someone on the internet in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, people buy from people, and that has been true. Zig Ziglar, said it great. I believe I heard a little bit about the personal brand concept, some early ideas from Daniel Priestley. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I love that idea, and indeed, Ryan, you are doing it. You're drinking your own champagne. I appreciate you making sure and being a personal voice out there. So, hey, let's wrap up our conversation today with next steps on how people can follow you, your brand, your voice, how you can help them just continue to learn, have good conversations, get better on their BS meter out there. Ryan, how do we find you? How do we follow you?
First of all, thanks again for having me on, John. I'd recommend people visit me on YouTube, just Ryan Dozer, which is my name. RyanDozer.com is my personal website. That's another good place to go to. I would say those two spots are probably the best.
Ryan, thanks so much for a great conversation.
Thanks so much, John. Thanks again for having me.
Wow, what an incredible conversation. I'm just so grateful for this. Ryan brought a huge level of clarity and honesty that truly, it cuts through so much of the confusion that's all around AI, trust, how real people make real decisions. I hope that you walk away with the same sense of direction and confidence that I did. So, hey, as a great next step for you, your company, if you want an outside perspective, like what Ryan was saying, you can book a free 30-minute AI consultation with us and our team over here at Dataliction. You can do that right on our website. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dataliction Podcast. Let's keep turning the data that we learn into the action that helps us grow.